The morning light shimmered softly across the wide glass windows of a luxury shopping district. Expensive boutiques lined both sides of the clean pavement, each with mannequins dressed in elegance and price tags that only the wealthy could afford. The gentle hum of city life mixed with the faint laughter of children, but amid all that calm, perfection stood one sound that felt out of place: the quiet, broken sob of a little boy. He couldn't have been older than 6 or 7. His small frame shook as he cried, standing outside a toy store where rows of bright pink Barbie dolls smiled from behind the glass. His hands hung loosely by his sides, his cheeks wet with tears that reflected the morning sun. Passers-by slowed their pace, looking for a moment before moving on, because in cities like this, even sadness becomes invisible when wrapped in expensive clothes. If you believe that kindness still matters, that people deserve second chances, and that a single act of compassion can change everything, please take a moment right now, like this video. Share it, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. You won't regret it. The little boy's name was Ethan, and the man standing a few feet away in a sharp navy suit was his father, Daniel Price, one of the youngest and most successful CEOs in the city. His name was printed in business magazines, his face known to the world of finance, his decisions able to move markets. But in that moment, as his son wept in front of him, Daniel looked more lost than powerful. People who knew Daniel only saw the success, the headlines that called him the man who built empires or the billionaire with no weakness. What they didn't see was the emptiness that followed him home, the hollow silence of a penthouse apartment, where the only voice he often heard was that of his assistant reminding him of meetings. His wife, Grace, had passed away 3 years earlier in an accident, and ever since, Daniel had buried himself in work, thinking money could fill the space she left behind. But children don't understand the language of success. Ethan didn't care how many companies his father owned. He just wanted his dad to be there, to play with him, to talk to him, to listen when he spoke about small, silly things. Yet Daniel's life had turned into one meeting after another, one late night after another, until even weekends felt like work days. That morning, Daniel had taken Ethan to buy a toy before a business conference. It was meant to be a quick stop. 5 minutes, he had said, glancing at his watch. But Ethan had stopped outside the toy store, his eyes fixed on a doll in the window. Not a car, not an action figure, but a Barbie doll in a pink dress. Daniel had frowned. "You don't need that," he had said sharply. "That's not for boys." And that was when the tears began. The boy's cry wasn't loud or spoiled. It was soft, filled with something deeper. A child's confusion mixed with hurt. The kind of pain that comes when the one person you trust the most dismisses what matters to you. Daniel had looked around, embarrassed by the stares. He wasn't angry at Ethan. He was angry at himself, angry at the vulnerability his son showed so openly in public. He crouched down, unsure what to say. Years of boardrooms and negotiations had made him fluent in control. But right now, he was speechless before his own child. "Ethan," he muttered softly, "we can talk about this later." But the boy didn't stop crying. Then, out of nowhere, a woman's voice broke the silence. "Maybe he just wants to feel seen," she said gently. Daniel turned and saw a woman in her early 30s kneeling beside Ethan. She had a warm face, strands of blonde hair falling over her cheek, and kind eyes that instantly made the moment feel softer. She wore a simple gray t-shirt and jeans, clearly not from this side of town. She held Ethan's small hands and spoke in a calm, motherly tone. "Hey, buddy, what's wrong?" Ethan sniffled. He said, "It's not for boys." The woman looked up at Daniel, and for the first time, he couldn't maintain eye contact. She turned back to the boy. "You know," she said, "when I was little, my brother wanted to play with dolls, too. Not because he wanted to be a girl, but because he liked stories. He used to make up stories for every doll. They went on adventures, they saved people. Maybe you're like that too, huh?" Ethan looked at her, his tears slowing. "Yeah, I make stories." The woman smiled. "That's what good storytellers do. They see characters in everything. Maybe that doll isn't just a toy. Maybe she's a hero in your story." Daniel watched, speechless. The stranger had done in 30 seconds what he hadn't managed in years: make his son stop crying. The woman stood, brushing the dust from her knees. "Sometimes kids don't want much," she said softly to Daniel. "They just want to know you see them. That's all." Her tone wasn't judgmental, just sincere. Before Daniel could say anything, she turned to leave. But something stirred inside him. Maybe guilt, maybe realization. He walked into the store, ignoring the confused look from the staff, and returned with the exact Barbie doll Ethan had pointed at. When he knelt down again and handed it to his son, Ethan's eyes widened. "For your stories," Daniel said quietly. Ethan took the doll slowly, as if afraid it might vanish, then hugged his father tightly. The world around them, the expensive shops, the curious onlookers, faded into the background. For the first time in years, Daniel felt something that no corporate success had ever given him: warmth. They didn't see that someone nearby had recorded the entire moment on a phone. By evening, the video was everywhere. Billionaire CEO buys doll for his crying son after stranger steps in. It spread faster than any press release Daniel's PR team had ever written. But it wasn't about fame this time. People weren't talking about his company or his wealth. They were talking about his humanity. The comments under the video poured in by the thousands. "This is what being a father looks like. Money can't buy love, but love can change everything." Respect to the woman who reminded him what matters most. At first, Daniel wanted to take the video down. He wasn't used to being vulnerable in public, but that night, when he tucked Ethan into bed, something he hadn't done in months, his son smiled up at him, clutching the Barbie doll close. "Dad," Ethan whispered, "can we make up a story tomorrow?" "About her?" Daniel felt a lump in his throat. "Yeah," he said softly, "tomorrow," but the story didn't end there. The next day, when Daniel arrived at his office, his assistant handed him a letter. It wasn't from a shareholder or a journalist. It was from the woman outside the store. Her name was Lily Carter, a school teacher. The letter was handwritten, simple and pure. She thanked him, not for the toy, but for listening. "You didn't have to care," she wrote, "but you did. And maybe that's all the world needs, a little more of. People who care, even when it's uncomfortable." Daniel stared at the note for a long time. Then he made a decision that would surprise everyone who knew him. He founded a small non-profit organization in his wife's name, the Grace Foundation, dedicated to supporting children's creativity and emotional health. Toys, art, music, stories, things that money often ignored but hearts remembered. Within months, the story of the crying boy and the CEO became a symbol of compassion. News outlets featured it, schools discussed it, and parents shared it to remind themselves of what mattered beyond their careers. Daniel never reached out to the media about it. He didn't need to. The moment had already spoken louder than any words he could offer. But one evening, as he and Ethan visited a community event sponsored by the foundation, they saw Lily again. She was helping kids paint cardboard castles. Ethan ran to her and hugged her leg. "Hi, Miss Lily. This is the doll," he said proudly, showing her the Barbie dressed now in a hand-stitched cape. Lily smiled. "Looks like she became a hero after all." Daniel approached her, grateful but still humbled. "I never thanked you," he said. "You just did," she replied with a smile, "by showing up." And in that brief, quiet exchange, surrounded by laughter, paint, and the chaos of children being children, Daniel realized something profound. Life wasn't about controlling everything, or winning, or making headlines. It was about moments like these, the small, human ones that remind us who we are. He looked at Ethan, whose laughter rang out like music, and thought of Grace, the woman who had taught him love before the world taught him success. For the first time in years, his heart felt full. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe, not just to support our channel, but to spread more stories that remind people of kindness, empathy, and love. Before you go, we'd love to know, would you have done the same if you saw that little boy crying outside the store? Comment your answer below. Your words might inspire someone today. And that's how one small moment, a child's tears, a stranger's kindness, and a father's awakening melted millions of hearts around the world. Because sometimes it takes losing control to finally find love again.